British police have named the London Bridge attacker who fatally stabbed 2 people. He's 28-year-old Usman Khan, who was convicted on terrorism offences in 2012. He was released from jail in December last year on parole. He'd been part of a plot to bomb the London Stock Exchange, Big Ben and Westminster Abbey. The victims of the London Bridge attack are a man and a woman. 3 people were injured. 1 is in a critical condition. The attacker was wearing a fake explosives belt and armed with a large knife. Authorities have confirmed the attack began inside Fishmongers Hall at the north end of London Bridge, where a criminal justice event was taking place. There are reports Usman Khan was invited to the conference. Sky News correspondent Mark White has more on the background of the attacker from Scotland Yard.
Well, this is a very significant and serious development at the end of a day of terror on London Bridge. The second time, of course, that London Bridge has been targeted by terrorists in just 2.5 years. The confirmation from sources that the man who carried out this attack was a recently released terrorist prisoner who's believed to have been on an electronic tag. And that's worrying, of course, because that's an indication that, yes, he was known, of course, to the police and security services, but they still clearly deemed him to be a threat, putting him on a security tag. So there will be questions about just how much the police and security services knew about the continued risk that this man posed and whether more could have been done to prevent this attack. Perhaps not surprising, of course, that he was known to the security services. These events rarely happen in isolation. Those that are on a journey towards violent extremism pop up on the police and security services radar. But as I say, there will be questions asked now about just how much the authorities knew and could more have been done to prevent this.
A new terrorism expert, Clive Williams, says there will be questions to answer about why the attacker was released.
A lone attacker using a vehicle or a knife, that's very difficult to anticipate that kind of attack because it could be mounted at very short notice. But this is a high security area. I suspect he wasn't supposed to be in that area when he's wearing an electronic tag. So I think there's going to be a bit of follow-up, obviously, when the Prime Minister had his Cobra meeting. That'll be one of the questions they'll be asking, how this has happened. But of course, it's a lesson for us also not to release people unless we're reasonably sure that they are no longer a threat to the public. I personally would make them swear on the Quran, which would be something which I think they wouldn't be able to do if they were, not anymore intending to be violent. So I think that would be a way of determining that they are or are not an ongoing threat. But ultimately, it's a matter of intelligence determining whether somebody is safe to be on the streets or not. And of course, that also includes people who have got mental issues, who might also be violent but not be terrorist or might not be politically motivated. So they can also be an issue. And of course, in that context, one of the things that we've tended to do over recent years is push people out onto the streets and try and close down a lot of expensive mental institutions. And clearly that's not a good idea. The government might have to bite the bullet on this one and accept that some people need to be incarcerated and more money has to go into that sector. I think every incident you learn from, obviously the Lind Cafe incident in Sydney, we learnt a number of lessons from that. Every incident is different. There's always things that you can do differently. Terrorists are also learning how to do things better, so they come up with new techniques, so that's another issue for us. We need to keep on top of that aspect, new types of weapons that they're able to create, new types of mixes of explosives. So it's an ongoing learning process, and it's just the same in the military, obviously, when you're involved in conflict and so on, that the lessons learned is an important thing. You just hope that you don't have to keep on learning the same lessons before it sort of changes the way you operate.